Jesus called his 12 disciples to him and gave them authority to drive out evil spirits and to heal every disease and sickness.
The Bible contains remarkable stories of miracles and divine interventions. Moses parted the sea. Peter healed a man lame from his mother's womb. Jesus drove demons out of people and raised others from the dead. But are these types of events still happening today?
We too have a beam of divine light and guidance that God has put within the heart of every man. And it's one of the greatest proofs that there is a God.
More amazing supernatural things are happening than we realize.
This is Divine Intervention, the interview show that features intriguing people who've experienced the hand of God in amazing ways. Divine Intervention was created and produced with the purpose of encouraging believers, spiritual seekers, and skeptics alike that Jesus is alive and is still performing miracles and working in the world today.
I believe in miracles.
Here's your host, Daniel Fazina.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Daniel Fazina. You are listening to Divine Intervention Radio, and I'm excited to bring you yet another amazing story of how God intervened in someone's life. Someone who you will know, trust me. He's a very famous individual with a powerful story that many people may not know. But before we get to his amazing testimony, I want to remind you to please go to my website, Divine Intervention Radio. You can see all the archives of the show there. DivineInterventionRadio.com. You can sign up for my newsletter. We can keep in touch. And you can contact me through there. You know, I'd love to hear how Divine Intervention has affected you. Do me a favor, drop me a line. Let me know that you're listening and what the show means to you. I really appreciate your feedback, and can't wait to hear. The show has been on for over 5 years now, and I'm just so excited about what God is doing. He's always bringing me new miracle stories to tell, and I just love sharing them. So, again, if you've listened to the show, maybe you've never written in before, do me a favor, take the time to write to me. I'm at divineintervention@mail.com, divineintervention@mail.com. You know, friends, I love it when God speaks to people, and he does that in different ways. I want to share a quick story before we get into our guest about how God really provided an opportunity for me to share my faith and just make a divine connection. I was at the dentist the other day, and I had to go in for some work because I had chipped a tooth. I'd broken a tooth, so I had to get a filling. And I went to a dentist that I didn't know. This group was recommended to me by somebody, and the doctor was actually an associate of the main doctor. I didn't even know her, really. So I went in, and I'm having my teeth drilled, and I had a wonderful experience, I have to say. I highly recommend it. Anyway, half my face was numbed up, and it was great. So as the doctor's working on me, I was really impressed to say something to her because it reminded me of when I went on a missions trip to the Dominican Republic. I had gone down there to do construction work and help build a church that doubled as a storm shelter because they get a lot of hurricanes down there and their shacks get blown away. In this area of the Dominican Republic I was in, it was pretty much abject poverty. It was no running water, no paved roads, spotty electricity, people living in shacks. A lot of the kids didn't even have clothes. Anyway, one of the guys I went with was a dentist, and I remember him making dentures and doing dental work for people down there. The person he was making dentures for was not an old woman. She was my age, 25 years old, had lost a lot of her teeth. They just didn't have access to good dentistry down there. So here I am in this modern dentist's office getting my teeth worked on, and, there's the very comfortable robotic dental chairs. You've got the automatic water dispenser. You've got digital x-rays. It's just very high-tech, and I was just so thankful that this was available. I had a chipped tooth, and I can go get it taken care of. No problem. But people in the Dominican Republic and other parts of the world, what do they do if they have a toothache? It can be pretty miserable, I'm sure. Maybe they have their own ways of dealing with it, but from what I saw, it's just really a sad state of affairs down there. So I was feeling very thankful, and I just felt this nudge from the Lord to express my gratitude to this doctor. So after the procedure was over, I said to her, I thank God for you, because in some places of the world, the people don't have access to dentists. That's all I said. And she looked at me, and her mouth just dropped, and she's like, I can't believe you just said that. I was like, really? Why? Now, keep in mind, I had had my teeth cleaned and been to the dentist countless times over my life, and I have never, ever said that to a dentist before. But for some reason, that day, God impressed it upon me to say it to this woman. And her answer was, you know, I so agree with you, and I appreciate that so much because I went on a missions trip to the Dominican Republic, and I was doing dental work down there. I was like thinking to myself, no way. So she starts to tell me that she went down with her church and a missions group, and she was doing dentistry down there, and she's like, the people's teeth are so horrible, and you know, they just don't have access to dentists like we have up here. And so it turns out she was a believer. I had no idea. I had met the woman briefly at my last visit, and this was like the first time I really got to talk to her. But she just like was beaming, and she was so excited to talk to me about it. And the funny thing is, she started saying things to me like, yeah, I sponsored a child from the Dominican Republic through an organization called Compassion International. Have you heard of it? And I just happened to be reading a book, and in that book, I had the bookmark that had a picture of the child that I sponsored from the Dominican Republic, Maria Cristina, who I had been sponsoring for 10 years. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So I took out the bookmark and showed her, and she was just floored. She's like, you know, I can't believe you said that. You've encouraged me so much. So I got to share with her a little bit about my story, and it turns out we made a great connection. And she was a believer, and she happened to be having a rough day in the office that day, and it was really encouraging to her for this divine appointment. Because I told her what I do about Divine Intervention Radio, and anyway, it was a great connection, and it was totally God, because again, you know, I'd never said anything like that to a dentist before, and sometimes you just get that still small voice that says, you know what, you got to say this to this woman. I mean, the impression I had to say this, it was very, very strong, and I knew that I had to say it, and I'm so glad that I did, because it turned out to be an amazing divine appointment. Another cool thing about this is that my wife and I had just met with a Christian physician just a few days prior to this, and we were talking about starting a fellowship group for Christians in the health and medical profession. We were talking about our desire to get together with other Christians in the medical field in Connecticut and starting like a local Connecticut chapter of Christian Health Professionals Fellowship or something like that. So I related that to the dentist and asked her if she would be interested in attending something like that, and she was like, yes, definitely, sign me up. You know, it was awesome to see that. So this divine appointment that happened in the dentist's office a few days after we had met with the internist was another confirmation that God was indeed doing something. Let that be an encouragement to you. If you feel like God is impressing you to say something, speak up, say something. You never know what can come about from it. I listened to that voice, and it turned out to be an awesome thing. So if you're in the Connecticut area and you need a dentist, I would highly recommend you go see Dr. Jane Russo over in Stratford. And if you work in the medical profession, maybe you're a doctor or a nurse, and you'd like to get together with us for fellowship and prayer and discussions on how we can integrate our faith into our practices and our businesses, please drop us a line. We'd love to get together with you. We'll most likely be meeting somewhere between New Haven and Bridgeport in Connecticut. So if you're interested in coming out, drop me a line at divineintervention@mail.com, divineintervention@mail.com, and you can put in the subject line, Connecticut Health Professionals Fellowship. You're listening to Divine Intervention Radio, the interview show that features intriguing people who've experienced the hand of God in amazing ways, and I am your host, Daniel Fazina. But now I want to get to our amazing guest for today. He's a very prominent individual that I know you will recognize, but you may not know about the amazing story he has about how God literally reached into his life and changed him. I have the privilege of speaking to a very well-known individual, multiple-time heavyweight boxing champion, George Foreman. Now, George Foreman was born in 1949 in the town of Marshall, Texas.
An impoverished youth, Foreman often bullied younger children and became a mugger and a brawler on the hard streets of Houston's 5th Ward by the age of 15. Luckily, he was saved by Lyndon Johnson's Job Corps program, which helped troubled kids. Foreman traveled to California, where he met Job Corps counselor and boxing coach Doc Broaddus, who encouraged Foreman to become a fighter. Once he began to train in the gym, Foreman rapidly established an impressive amateur record. The culmination of his amateur boxing career came in the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City, where he won a gold medal, his 25th amateur fight. In 1969, George turned professional, and within 2 years, he was ranked the #1 challenger by the WBA and the WBC. By 1972, George's impressive record was 37 wins, most by knockout, and no losses. Foreman became heavyweight champion in 1973 with a second-round knockout of the favored Joe Frazier in Kingston, Jamaica. George successfully defended his title twice before losing to Muhammad Ali in the much-hyped Rumble in the Jungle in Kinshasa, Zaire. After taking 1975 off, George returned to boxing, winning a number of fights before losing by decision to Jimmy Young in Puerto Rico in 1977. It was in his dressing room after the fight that Foreman had a divine intervention in the form of a near-death experience. He then gave up boxing and became a born-again Christian. He was ordained a minister of the gospel and began preaching in his hometown of Houston, Texas. In 1984, he founded the George Foreman Youth and Community Center, a non-denominational place for kids who need direction, like he once did. However, the George Foreman Center needed money to stay operational, and by 1987, George decided to return to boxing to support it. George proved his detractors wrong when he kept winning fights into his 40s. In 1991, he had a shot at the title but lost to champ Evander Holyfield by decision. In 1994, however, Foreman took on the new champ Michael Moorer and knocked him out in the 10th round. George became, at 44, the oldest fighter ever to win the heavyweight crown and also the fighter with the most time in between one world championship and the next. George gave away his titles in 1995 after defending them against Axel Schultz and refusing a rematch. Since that time, George has been an evangelist, an author, a philanthropist, and a businessman. And it's my pleasure to welcome George Foreman right now on Divine Intervention to share about his illustrious life, career, and faith. George, welcome to Divine Intervention. Thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, it's a pleasure to speak to you, and I have to tell you, the first impression I got of you was when you were selling the Meineke mufflers on those commercials. I was born in 1975, and I didn't know you before you met the Lord, and it was very cool to see, just your big smiling face, and to see what God has done in your life. But before we get to how God really touched you and transformed you, why don't you take us to the beginning? Tell us about your background and your childhood. What was it like growing up for you in Houston?
Oh, it's so strange. My mom and dad broke school, of course, and growing up in the mean streets of Houston, Texas, I even adapted myself to mugging because I needed quick money. I always wanted to get something for nothing. So the police was always in my life and always in a fight of some sort for some reason or another. Always fighting. So originally that's what got me in trouble because one night the police was chasing three of us. I was the big of the guys with the mugging, but I was also slower of the three.
Okay.
They closed in on me. I had to dig myself under a house to hide from the police, and my life changed as a teenager right then because my mom had always told us there never had been thieves in her life, in her family, and there I was hiding from the police like a criminal. Covered myself from head to toe so the dogs wouldn't sniff me out with a busted sewage pipe, by way of a busted sewage pipe.
Okay.
And I said, if I ever get from under this house, I'm going to do something with my life I'll never steal again.
Okay.
And I heard a commercial. Jimmy Brown and Johnny Unitas do for the Job Corps. They said, if you're looking for a second chance, join the Job Corps. Lyndon Johnson has started this program over anti-poverty.
Right.
And I went in, and as a 16-year-old boy, and that's where I got my start in boxing.
Wow. And you actually accumulated quite an impressive record, even going to the Olympics and winning the gold medal in 1968.
I just had a total of 25 boxing matches, the last one being my victory as a gold medalist in the Olympics. And of course, that moved me into another thing because after the fight, I was so happy about winning and where I'd come from that I waved a small American flag so the world could know where I was from.
Right.
And at that time, they were protesting, and it wasn't fashionable to do those things then. A lot of people got upset. How could you wave the flag when the brothers were doing that? And it broke my heart, but it also put a chip on my shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
Not only was I going to be a professional boxer, but I became really a mean and hateful guy because of that.
Yeah, interesting. As I told you, my first impression of you was seeing you on the Meineke commercials, and you looked so happy, and I just always pictured you as this happy, jovial guy. And then in the mid-1990s, I saw the film When We Were Kings, about the documentary with your fight with Muhammad Ali. And in those interviews, you looked to me very dour, very angry, very brooding, not much personality or life coming through. And I didn't realize the person that you were back then.
Yeah, and then that's what happened. I guess like people take a little dog or something and tease it all the time. Then all of a sudden it starts biting, and everybody's afraid of it.
Right. Yeah,
that's what had happened to me. Can you imagine representing your country and having your red, white, and blues, and somebody going to tell you, how could you wave a small American flag when I'd been literally rescued from the gutter by way of it?
Mm.
And then I just decided I wasn't going to have friends to be hurt. And I went into boxing, and my role model, the first one, was the great Sonny Liston.
Right, right.
His theory was, if you come to me, I'll kill you. And if you run, I'll catch you and kill you. So we spent all those hours together looking and staring at people. I became so good at imitating him, he was frightened because I'd become better at it than him. And so I figured if you're going to be heavyweight champ of the world, first qualification, be angry, be mean.
Right.
And I had mastered that part of it.
I remember seeing an interview with you somewhere on TV, and you said you actually got to the point where you wanted to physically kill somebody in the ring.
That's true, because sometimes you win a fight and you knock a guy out, and you read in the newspaper, oh, Georgia's not fighting anyone. I said, you know what? I'm going to show them. I'm going to kill somebody. I'll tell them. They'll stop it then. You really can get confused in that community out there.
Right. No kidding. Now, George, were you raised with any spiritual foundations or with any religious background?
My mother would encourage her children to go to church, but that wasn't any way. Most churches were so far away. I remember as a little boy, I'd get in trouble. Sometimes my mother she had a Bible in the room. She said, go read that Bible, boy. And so I'd go in the room and look at the pictures.
Okay.
I never could understand wherefore art thou, therefore. So I didn't get into that. I'd come out of the room and act like I was a nice kid. She said, don't you feel better? And I said, sure. But I never read a word of it.
Okay.
That was as close as I'd come to any kind of spiritualism. My mother telling me to go read the Bible, and I never did read it.
Did you have a concept of God, or did you believe in him at that time?
And of course, people tell you to say your prayer before a meal or something, but I didn't really get into that. My mother just didn't have any time to press it on me. Mm-hmm. And then after, of course, I became a famous boxer, I was told, George, you want to find some pretty girls? Go by the church house.
Oh, wow.
So I'd hang around. I'd go by a church house every now and then and act like a nice fella, put on a suit.
Right.
But that was it. I didn't believe in it. My mother would be depressed when I was young, and I'd hear in the room, because she didn't have anything, and oh Lord, oh God, we're going to have to pray about this. And I said, man, that's terrible. One day I'm going to be rich, and I'll never hear that again.
Wow.
So I was striving to get money so my mother would never have to say, oh Lord, oh God anymore. I thought it was just for poor people who didn't have things.
Okay. It's funny how things work out, right? Strange
thing, I'm wealthy, I'm heavyweight champ of the world. And now I walk up on my mom, and she's still saying, oh, Lord, oh, God, and we better pray. I didn't understand that, but so I kept thinking maybe I need more money.
Interesting.
I didn't believe in religion. I'd come to the conclusion that it was something put on people who didn't have anything. In my neighborhood, you see a young man, tough and grueling, and all of a sudden the police beat him up, or he gets shot or something, or a lady would lose her husband. Then they'd go to church. And I figured that's the worst thing that could ever happen to a person is to you have to have something bad happen to you to go to church.
Right.
So I veered away from it. I just didn't believe in it. I thought it was just for people, for losers.
Right. No, I understand that. I mean, there's a popular, I guess, perception of that. And in a sense, what you said, religion is like that. There's a difference between knowing God in a personal way and religion, because a lot of people can go to church, they can go through all the rituals, but not be connected to God in that personal way.
And then to be honest, I just didn't believe it. I figured, there's a God somewhere. He's in the flowers and in the birds.
Right.
That's the way I thought. And
Okay.
I didn't think much else about it. I figured if there was also religion after becoming heavyweight champ of the world, I said I must be loaded with it because I got money in all four pockets.
Right.
And I thought that was religion.
Gotcha. Now, George, tell us about your father, because the man that he was or is really affected you and made you the man you are today in some ways.
Yeah, well, I found out early on that, remember, I'm coming up, J.D. Foreman would always put his hand on my head and say, George Foreman, the next heavyweight champ of the world. And it made me feel so special, although my mom and he broke up early.
Right.
He'd always come by and put his hand on my head and tell me the next heavyweight champ of the world, stronger than Jack Johnson, hit like Jack Dempsey. And say these kind words to me, and I had no idea what a heavyweight champion was. But I found out later on in life that my mom and dad had broke up because I was not really, he was not my biological father.
Okay.
And that was the cause of their breaking up. So I was devastated after losing the fight in Africa to Muhammad to find out that was also a loss. So I had to redirect and find myself all over again. And, of course, it made me even closer to J.D. Foreman then, knowing how much he loved me, to never even mention that.
So you found out that he wasn't your real father around the same time as that fight?
Yeah, I lost the fight to Muhammad Ali, devastated, coming home, and then a sister sneaking and telling me that. And I did some investigation and found out. And that's a devastation.
Sure. I mean,
Believe me, double devastation. So my life was starting to creep away from me, and sadness has started to come in like nothing before.
Right. Now, in that during that time, and I remember from watching the documentary When We Were Kings, that fight was so hyped, and you guys, you went in there, and if I remember correctly from the film, there was, I guess, a hint or an allegation that you may have been even drugged or poisoned, or maybe there was some witchcraft spell put on you. What do you think about that?
I've heard all the above, too. And I lost the fight, let me say that fair and square.
Okay.
Muhammad Ali hit me with a 1-2 combination left-right. There on the canvas, I felt the punch, I was down, and I was counted. I tried to beat the count, but when I got up, it was too fast, that's for sure.
Sure.
At the count of 8, they counted me out, but in the dressing room, my most trusted manager, Dick Sutler at the time, we had this ritual. I would dry out, at least go most of a day before without water, sip a little tea, just a little sip of water, a little ice, and then just before we go into the ring, we'd have this ritual where I would take a big drink of water and some ice. This night in Africa, I took my customary drink of water, and I said, man, this water tastes like medicine.
Oh.
I did take medicine, and he jumped in my face, same water as always. And so I didn't want to make him feel like I was accused of anything, so I took another drink. I said, man, this water's got medicine in it. He said, the same water as always. He looked around and said, see if it had something in there. I'm taking a drink. There's nothing wrong with it. And then when I look back and when I saw him do that, I should have realized then that he had done something. And I'm not trying to say if he hadn't given me that water, I could have won that boxing match or something like that. But no one needed to put medicine in my water. I don't think that was right.
Yeah, that sounds like he was acting kind of suspicious there.
Yeah. But you know what? And that's a story of one disappointment and one heartache after another. It's sort of like the domino effect. One horrible thing happening to you after another.
Well, I think it's obvious that, God has a plan in everything that we go through. And sometimes in the hard times in life, that's when God can speak to us and really reach us. You mentioned before that you saw people who had tragedies, that's what it took to get them to church. And I guess in your case, it wasn't so much going to church, but you had a real theophany. I mean, God himself intervened in your life.
After the fight in Africa, I couldn't believe I hit anyone with this 1-2 punch I had. Nobody could stand up to it. There I was in Africa landing those same punches, and the magic just didn't happen as always before.
Right.
I couldn't understand that. I'd gone to Africa, and a friend of mine had given me a New Testament Bible. I think it was a New Testament. And I carried this for good luck. And I didn't read it, but I carried those things. But I remember going after I lost that fight to Muhammad Ali, all of the good luck charms, I threw them away. Even the Bible, I said, if I can't win, why keep them?
Wow, yeah.
So, and I said, okay, I'll be champ of the world. I started working hard again, got to be the number one contender all over again.
Right.
And that's when I had to fight with Jimmy Young.
Now, this was in 1977 in Puerto Rico, correct?
Same one, Puerto Rico.
Okay. Now, tell us about this fight, because this fight changed your life in some ways, in a big way, actually.
Oh, what a life-changing experience this was. I'm number one contender. Muhammad Ali is not going to give me a rematch. He kept saying he would and would not. So,
I don't blame him, actually.
Said, look, if you beat Jimmy Young, then if he doesn't fight you in a certain length of time, we're going to strip him, and this will be considered an elimination fight, and the winner of this fight will be champion. So I go out to win this boxing match, but at the same time show the world that I have this great stamina, that someone must have put something in my water. I'm going to go 12 rounds as well.
Okay.
It was a 12-round fight, so I go out there, and I have him on a line, on a hook a couple of times, and let him out because I intended to go the distance.
Okay.
Then, in the latter rounds, I reach out to knock him out, and he knocked me down. He was more afraid than I was. I jumped up, he ran.
I don't blame him.
But after the fight was over, I was pretty content that I'd won the fight, but I lost a 12-round decision. I was still happy because I'd gone 12 rounds.
Right.
I went back into the dressing room after I'd heard the decision I lost. I wasn't depressed. It was just so hot in Puerto Rico. The air conditioner had gone out in the building. People cheering. I went back to cool off. And as I'm walking back and forward, it's so hot. Couldn't even breathe. The air conditioner's off there. I was trying to look for a window to get a breath of fresh air. Everybody's watching me. And you're not supposed to sit down after a boxing match. So I walked back and forth, trying to cool myself out like a racehorse.
Okay.
And as I'm walking, I said, you don't have to worry about this boxing match. You're still George Foreman. You just signed a big contract to do television, and you got a movie career. As a matter of fact, you could go home right now to your ranch, your big, beautiful ranch. You could retire and die. I said, wait a minute, die? How did that get in there?
What?
I said, die? So I started walking back and forward. I said, I'm not going to die. I got too much to live for. I'm still George Foreman. I got money, and I had money in the safety deposit box and stocks and bonds. I said, I don't care about this boxing match. I could go home and retire and die. It happened again. I could not get that word out of my conversation. Death creeped in. You're going to die. And I'd heard about athletes dying before and after these athletic events.
Right.
I said, not me. I'm not going to die. And right in the midst of this is going on, trying to walk it off, and everybody's looking at me. I heard a voice within me ask, you believe in God, why are you scared to die? And I was afraid. Man, I was scared. I mean, I had this big body, and I had a life before me. And I don't want people to think I was frustrated on the loss. I said, you believe in God, why are you scared to die? So I started trying to make a deal. I knew death was coming to me in that dressing room. For some reason, you get intelligent. I said, look, I'm still George Foreman. I can box and give money to charity and for cancer. And right within me, I heard a voice say, I don't want your money, I want you.
Whoa.
And I started, my eyes, I started crying because I could feel life is like a smile that just leave off your face. You know you're about to die, and I couldn't do anything about it. All the push-ups and sit-ups and all the things I've done in my life, and I was going to die. I had a beautiful homes in different places. I was going to die in a smelly old dressing room that didn't even have air conditioning or hot water.
Right.
I started going back and forth, and everybody's looking at me. I didn't want them to think I was frustrated, so I couldn't make a deal. And finally, as I was walking back and forward, my leg got weak on, and I was about to die. I said, God, I believe in you, but not enough. Before I could say another word, my leg curled up, and I screamed at everybody in the room, hey, y'all, I'm fixing to. Before I could say another word, I was gone. In a split second, I was in this deep, dark nothing. Over my head, below me, all around me is like someone had dropped me in the sea where there wasn't any islands or anywhere around, and I was lost.
Oh, my gosh.
Death, dog. and you could tell other people were in this lonely place. And it was like a dump yard of horrible smell and sorrow. And I remember looking around, and I got mad. I really got mad because my friends had Doberman pinschers. I had lions and tigers. I got mad. I said, I don't care if this is death. I still believe there's a God. That's all I said. When I said that, it was like a gigantic hand reached in and pulled me out of nothing. Out of nothing, where there's like no hope, in the sea where there's no ship. And I was alive in that dress room. Evidently, they had picked me up off the floor and laid me on the table.
Wow.
And as I lay there, my doctor who traveled with me, Dr. West, was behind me holding my head. I said, Dr. West, move your hands. The thorns on his head are making him bleed. These are the words I said.
Wow.
I saw blood coming down my forehead. And my masseur, Mr. Fuller, looked at my hand. I said, Mr. Fuller, move your hand. He's bleeding when they crucified him. And I jumped up off the table and started screaming that Jesus Christ was coming alive in me.
Wow.
I fought 8 men. They said, don't let him get in the shower. The shower's cold. We don't have hot water. I jumped in the shower and fought the 8 men and started screaming, I'm clean. Hallelujah, I've been born again. I've never said words like that. Something hit me below my stomach, and I started screaming and reciting the Bible, things I didn't believe in. I kissed everybody in the room and told them I loved them.
Wow.
And I said, I got to go tell the world. They held me down because they said, George, you don't have any clothes on. And they held me down on the dressing room table. And as they held me down, I heard a voice that I come to my friends and they don't believe me. And it could have been I come to my brothers and they don't believe me. And I come to my brothers and they don't understand me. And I heard the voice get further away. I said, don't let Jesus go. Don't let Jesus go. And then the voice said, now go to my Father, which is in heaven. I started screaming, don't let Jesus go. And just like that, it was all over. For a moment, I was reciting the Bible. I was kissing and hugging everybody and telling everybody I loved them. And then all of a sudden, it was all over. And I felt, so embarrassed. And I told them, I said, you witnessed a miracle, and you'll never believe it.
Wow.
Well, they witnessed the miracle, but they held me down and strapped me into one of those beds and took me to an intensive care hospital. And that's where I lay. And I remember looking at that little button going up and down, because I heard if it goes flat, you're dead for sure.
Right, right.
But my life was never the same anymore. I tried to say, you got hot, dehydrated, but the smell of death, as I talk to you right now, is just like I can smell it again. The sorrow of losing I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to my mother and my children. Oh, man.
Wow.
That was the most horrible thing. And there I was in that hospital now, alive.
Praise God.
And so it changed everything.
I'm sure. Well, when an experience like
for
that...
me. So I never intended to stop boxing or to retire or to be a preacher. But I went home telling this story, and for 10 years, I never even made a fist.
Wow. Incredible. George, I'm so excited to hear your story and to get it out there on divine intervention. And, you know, God has done so much in your life, so much more after that experience. And we're going to get to that right after the break. Everyone at home, if you're just tuning in, we're speaking with George Foreman, 2-time heavyweight champion of the world. We'll be right back with more on divine intervention. Stay with us.
When he died and was raised from the dead, taught us all 40 days, and he said, well, my friends, it's time to fly.
Hey, this is Daniel Fazina of Divine Intervention Radio. The Bible contains some incredible stories of miracles and divine interventions. Jesus calmed a raging storm, healed paralytics, and even raised the dead. But are these types of events still happening today? The answer to this question, as you will see from reading my book, Divine Intervention, 50 True Stories of God's Miracles Today, is an emphatic yes. Contained within the book is a collection of amazing true stories that attest to this fact. You will read the astonishing first-hand accounts of people who have been healed of paralysis, terminal cancer, and tumors through prayer. You will see the love of God powerfully transform the life of an Islamic terrorist. You will witness the liberation of the demon-possessed, the resurrection of the dead, and much more. Prepare to be awed and inspired as you experience divine intervention. More information about Divine Intervention, 50 True Stories of God's Miracles Today can be found at www.divineinterventionradio.com or by calling 800-247-4784. That's 1-800-247-4784. Welcome back to Divine Intervention. I'm your host, Daniel Fazina, and this is the interview show that features intriguing people who've experienced the hand of God in amazing ways. If you're just tuning in, we are talking with Mr. George Foreman, two-time heavyweight champion of the world. He is an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, a father, and a man of God. Welcome back, George.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, George, before the break, we were just talking about how God literally intervened in your life in a powerful way and made himself real to you, and your life was never the same. Now, take us to that point. You're in the hospital after this incident. How did your life go from there?
The first thing you try to figure out, maybe I got hit too hard. But how do you explain this horrible smell that you still smell?
Right.
Maybe, but the blood on your hand, I didn't even believe it. And the thorns, I never said anything like that. And so I couldn't explain it away, so I went home to try to talk to a few people. Dr. Shula invited me to tell the story on his television show.
Okay.
Hour of Power, and I figured, I did. I told that story the way I just explained it to you.
Right.
I thought I was going to go back to to my hotel and die. I thought that was the end of me because I told the story. Then I started telling more. Within, 6 months, people were calling me Brother George.
A little strange, huh?
Churches.
Yeah.
And then finally, after studying at one church for less than a year, I was ordained an evangelist with the Church of the Lord Jesus Christ in Houston, where I'd go to hospitals and prisons and speak to young people. And I was an ordained minister then. And I traveled all over the world, even to Africa, where I had fought Muhammad Ali in the same arena.
Right.
The same story.
Wow.
And, of course, I took up my ministry for 10 years. That's all I did. I never even made one fist, let alone box, for 10 years. I just walked away from it to tell that story.
It's amazing what Jesus will do in someone's life. You know, when you meet Jesus, you're never the same.
No, I just didn't think. You'd heard about stories, especially on television or a book, but you don't think it's real.
Right.
I never had any idea it was real, and it came on me like something. How could I have lived that long and not knew how God was real? I just didn't know that. I just didn't know.
You know, that reminds me of an interview I saw with you one time when you were telling the viewers how you were so ignorant when you were young that when you were mugging people, you didn't even realize it was wrong. And when the police had come for you at one point, you didn't know why.
You just didn't know. It all occurred to me. I'd seen in a movie, the FBI were chasing bad guys, and then they were the hound dogs come after them, and they couldn't find them. Then they get the hound dogs. Then the guys dive in the water and cross over. The dogs couldn't smell through the water. And I'm under the house, hiding from the police, and I'm thinking, I gotta get. If I get some water, then I realized you're a criminal. You're actually a thief. That's the only realization I had that I was stealing by covering myself with that busted sewage pipe under the house.
Wow. Well, praise God.
I just didn't know it was wrong. And you'd be surprised at the amount of young people in prison today, they're ignorant. When the judge says you got 10 years, they have no idea what's going on.
Wow. Incredible. So it's so important to have a foundation. You know, God's laws, they're there for our benefit.
Sunday school.
Yes.
Sunday school.
You know,
I'd gone to Sunday school. I wish someone had told me that, Those dogs never would have had a chance at me.
Right. Now, George, going forward, you put a lot of emphasis on being a good father. You have 10 children, and I remember reading in one of your books that you spell the word love, T-I-M-E. Tell us what that means to you.
Oh, my children. I wanted to make certain, and I was striving that I'd make certain I hear every one of my kids scream, "Let me live my own life. Give me my space." If I could get this from 10 kids, I would consider myself successful. Because I didn't want to, you give them all the money in the world, all the cars in the world, but there's nothing like your time.
Right.
They need time out of your life to let them know that they're loved. Then they'll continue to pass it on.
Right. You know, and the Word of God says when you train a child in the way they should go, they won't depart from it when they're older.
Amen to that one.
Yeah. And you're obviously leaving quite a legacy to your children.
I got into a lot of trouble because my parents just didn't have time.
Right.
They just didn't have enough time.
And that's in today's society, that's a very difficult thing because you have a lot of families who are, both parents are working, if there are two parents in the home. Even if there are two, a lot of times they have to both work just to make ends meet. And a lot of times the kids suffer as a result of that.
Yeah, and then they can really benefit too. But a young man asked me earlier today what I thought about role models.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important that athletes, especially the famous athletes,
sure,
become role model because the parents work so hard so their kids could have a television and that they're going to see these athletes, at least be someone that these kids can look up to, because if they get in trouble, it's because they've patterned themselves after someone. So it is important that if you're going to make it out there, at least dedicate yourself to be a role model, because the parents, as you said before, they have to work 2 and 3 jobs to make end meet.
Mm-hmm.
And when they get to a television, the athletes and celebrities should take a greater responsibility on making sure these kids follow you right. I heard that commercial with Jimmy Brown and Johnny Unitas from the past. They were great Hall of Fame football players.
Right.
They said if you're looking for a second chance, join the Job Corps, get a basic education, learn a sport. They could have also said jump off a bridge. I would have done that.
Wow.
But role models are very important, especially with children. A lot of these athletes should spend more time on trying to be better human beings.
Right. And I think with God's help, they can be, as is evidenced in your life.
That's the only way we can do it, with the help of God.
Right. And, speaking of role models, you are such an inspiration to so many people because one of the major highlights of your career is winning the heavyweight championship of the world at in your mid-40s. You were the oldest one.
Yeah, I was almost 46 years old.
Tell us about that, and how did you make your mind up to do this and achieve this goal again?
Well, I was trying to raise money for the youth center, and literally I'd taken all of my life savings to keep that George Foreman Youth and Community Center going in Houston, Texas,
mm-hmm.
and, of course, support my families, and I just couldn't do both. And so I decided I know how to make money. I'm not going to ask people for money. I'm going to be heavyweight champ of the world again.
Mm.
So I went back working, and I even earned the money previously, but I said I was going to be heavyweight champ of the world to keep with the integrity. And eventually I kept staying, fighting, one fight after another, got myself in shape. And I was matched with Michael Moore, who was about 20 years younger than me.
Right.
People just didn't think it could happen. And I just stayed in there for the purpose of the integrity. I said I would be heavyweight champ of the world. You just can't try to go back earning money. You got to stand for something.
Right.
And it was rough on me, but I stayed the course. And in the 10th round, I was able to land this hard right hand, and I was able to reclaim the title that I'd lost 20 years earlier.
I remember that fight, and what an amazing moment that was for sports history. And I'm sure a lot of the naysayers who said it couldn't be done were just their mouths were stopped at that point because you made a goal, and with God's help, you were able to do that. And I remember you turning around and I think maybe getting on your knees in the corner and just thanking God right after the fight.
I really did. I got on my knees and thanked God above because I knew that was a miracle. He told me to keep working and I could do it. And I never did too much. When I got into the ring, I always figured I'm just going to box and go about my business. I didn't attend to my religious ceremonies in the ring,
mm-hmm.
pointing to the sky or anything like that. But I said, God, if I win this, I'm going to get on my knees and scream, "Thank you, Jesus!" I got on my knees and did so that night.
That was awesome.
Because that was a miracle.
Yes.
God can do anything for anyone at any time.
What a testimony. And, I imagine that you do a lot of media, of course. You're very famous, obviously. Do you get a lot of opportunity to tell people about Jesus?
I never stop. I figured the greatest thing that ever happened to me was that in Puerto Rico back in '77, the greatest thing that ever happened to me was to find Jesus Christ in that dressing room. Nothing has come close to that. Until the day I leave this life, I hope to give that testimony. And it doesn't matter. And I must say that people in sports have been gracious enough to let me tell this story for the last almost 33 years. No one has ever interrupted. But I've never felt so freely doing it as I did today on your show.
Wow. Well, thank you, George. You know, that's the purpose of this show. We really we interview all different types of people, but the main common denominator is that Jesus has intervened in their lives in some way. I mean, we have miracle healings, we have deliverances, awesome different types of testimonies, but I'm really honored to have you on. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Now, throughout your life as well, in going through these, everything you've done so much. You're an author, you're an entrepreneur, you got the George Foreman grills. In everything that you've done, what do you feel is your greatest achievement in life?
Oh, boy. My children.
Mm-hmm.
I remember walking, and there's nothing like it when my boy is named George, by the way. When you see one graduate from high school and they holler, George Foreman, and they give him his diploma from high school, and then they walk across the stage, your daughters too, George Foreman. You keep hearing these names, and it's like, what have I accomplished? Hanging those diplomas on the wall. That's the most, wow, that's so wonderful.
You're seeing your legacy.
A quality education, and hear your name on stage when one get a degree. Oh, it's splendid.
Right. And for anyone who doesn't know, all 4 of your sons are named George, isn't that right?
All 5. I have 5 sons.
You have 5, okay.
Yeah, and there are 6 of us named George Edward Foreman. We got numbers.
I guess
what I'm saying is that if you're going to be a great boxer, save your money because your window of earning is short.
Right.
And if you're going to get hit in the head by Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, Ken Norton, Evander Holyfield, make preparation for memory loss.
That's a good reason to name all your sons named George.
Yeah, my wife said, if you forget one of my sons' names, you got to stop. I didn't forget one.
Just keep it simple, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, man. Well, George, I guess if there's someone listening to this interview right now who maybe is a skeptic, or maybe they don't believe in God or know Jesus Christ, what would you want to say to them?
Oh, boy. I tell you what I've really gotten out of my experience with God and finding Jesus Christ was that forgiveness. What has really brought me more peace of mind, and you can't find forgiveness without Jesus Christ. He gave me something I always wanted. I thought it was going to be $1 million or a Rolls Royce, but forgiveness is the gift I got from God. Because sometimes you don't know, you have many brothers, many sisters, dads, moms, cousins, even best friends, until you learn forgiveness. And when you do, you got lots of people in your life. But without forgiveness, they start to dwindle away.
Wow.
Tell them to look for forgiveness, and you're going to find Jesus right there with him.
Right. Well, that's the reason that Jesus came to earth to die for our sins, to forgive us and to reconcile us.
That's a big word, forgiveness.
Yeah. It's very deep.
Without forgiveness, there's no way. I mean, you could wake up a motherless child or a fatherless child. Without forgiveness, your children may not be allowed in your life anymore. Forgiveness is the greatest achievement that I've gotten with the relationship with God. It's the gift of forgiveness.
Awesome stuff.
Being forgiven myself.
Yeah, because we all have our own sins and our own baggage that we need to...
There were a lot of things I did wrong, and God forgave me, and so I was able to, in return, turn around and share what he had given me to my friends. Right. I got lots of friends now.
I'm sure.
Lots of friends, because it doesn't matter what is done to me, I forgive it.
That's great. Wow, I'm blown away. That's a great answer. If there are any people right now who are aspiring to be boxers, let's say, or maybe they just have a goal in life and there's a lot of naysayers around them and they're just discouraged, what would you want to say to those people?
Well, and I found the road to any accomplishment is through prayer.
Okay.
All we have to do is take some time and pray. Just pray. Show off privately to God that, look, I want you to do this for me. And he's able to show you his glory and power. Just all you got to do in return is just pray. All things are possible. I see a lot of people who said, I'm going to have to abandon this, my belief in God, so I can accomplish this. I've done movies, television shows, so many commercials. I've had every opportunity in the world that anyone else could have, and I've never had to stop and leave my integrity behind me. I kept Jesus Christ with me.
That's great.
There's an old saying, an old song I heard, take the Lord along with you everywhere you go. And I'm telling you, you not only can take him with you, but he'll take you with him too.
That's right. That's right. There's one thing I really appreciate about you. I was reading on your website how you'd become a salesman and you were selling different things and trying different businesses, but you realized after a time that you need to only do good things and have a purpose in that. Like, you don't just take any business deal anymore, but you want to make sure that there's integrity there and that you're doing something positive.
And that's what you look for. Anyone can make a dollar, but it's the hardest thing in the world is to be able to look in that mirror in the morning and like what you see.
Right.
And the only way you can do that is do what we do with integrity.
Mm-hmm. Awesome stuff. George, do you have a favorite scripture?
My favorite scripture is First Psalm from top to bottom. Blessed is the man that walks not in the counsel of the ungodly. In other words, if you don't take advice from the wicked, you're in good shape.
Right.
Because I used to think that a man was blessed with a Cadillac, but you can have a Cadillac and still not have blessings.
That's right.
Blessed is the man that walks not in the counsel of the ungodly. Love it. First Psalms.
Stay away from ill-gotten gains, right?
That's true.
Awesome. Well, George, when your time on earth is finished and Jesus calls you home, how would you like to be remembered?
Oh, I'm so happy that, because what you really leave behind you is a good name. Mm-hmm. And hopefully it's good enough that my kids will say, I've got something to do other than just earn money and become famous. I'm gonna acquire a good name like my dad. And that's all I would like to do, is leave a good name, that I was kind to my fellow man. That's enough.
Awesome. Wow. And once again, we're speaking with two-time heavyweight champion George Foreman. And George, your website is georgeforeman.com, is that right?
Yeah, you can find me, biggeorge.com, and there's a lot we talk about. I got the website, and it explains some of the things I'm involved in, and how happy my life has been. And it even show you how to find the George Foreman Youth Center. Awesome.
Very good. Do you have a new book out, is that right?
Yeah, George Foreman, Knockout Entrepreneur. An explanation on how anyone can start from the bottom and work their way up. All you got to do is want to.
All right.
And there's a lot of prayers.
Right.
Main ingredients in this stew and this cake is praying.
That's great. George, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out on Divine Intervention to share about your amazing testimony of what God has done in your life. And I want to encourage you to just keep spreading the word and just speaking the word of God to whoever will listen. Once again, George Foreman, thanks again, sir. Take care, and God bless you.
Thank you so very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Friends at home, I want to thank you for tuning in once more, and I hope this episode has encouraged you to know that God is real and He is still intervening in people's lives. If you want to drop me a line, or if you have any questions or comments, my email address is divineintervention@mail.com, divineintervention, all one word, @mail.com. And once again, the show is archived, so if you missed an episode live, you can check it out online, divineinterventionradio.com, divineinterventionradio.com. God willing, we will see you again next week for another edition of Divine Intervention. Take care and God bless.